know how much I've talked about this. I probably have, but going to barre class was how I fell in love with exercise and continued to heal my relationship with my body post eating disorder and just like the craziness of being an actor in New York. And it was funny because moving to London, well, the pandemic, I really missed going to classes. I had this one class I really loved in New York. And then finally, when things started to open up more in London, I started to go again. And it was like, all right, this is the thing that makes me feel so like powerful and sexy. And then I was in London recently and was introduced to Catie Miller. And she is the founder of Barre Series. I went to her class. It was so much about what I loved from this New York class and this New York studio that has since closed, but it was fantastic. She has such great energy. She has a keen eye for holistic health and expertise spanning over 14 years in the fitness industry. And she brings a very refreshing perspective to the art of movement, which we chat about today. Her journey is marked by a steadfast commitment to community building and empowerment, which you really felt in her class. It was like a really beautiful community vibe. Her background is in dance. We talked a little bit about that, which was fun, and also coupled with certifications in various movement modalities. Catie infuses her teaching with infectious positivity, which I absolutely can say she does. It left me smiling. You felt so good afterwards. And also is a meticulous planner. She fosters an environment where her clients thrive. And I would totally go all the time if I lived in London. And I cannot wait to share this episode with you. So enjoy. Catie, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so thrilled. I'm always a bit nervous with podcasts, but I'm excited because it's you and I can't wait to dig in.
I think that's normal. They always said, you have a background in dance, I have a background in acting, that nervous and excited are same sides of the different sides of the same coin, right? So here we are.
It's so true. It's so true. I don't know if you're the same, but before any performance, I'm always still so nervous before you get out on the stage.
Oh yeah.
So Here we are. This is our stage for today.
We're on it. We are on it. So I wanted to have you on after experiencing your barre class in London. And I am historically, my whole life, my poor mom is like the biggest jock. And I was so happy to sit in my room and like color and play Barbies. I did not want to move my body. I did dance and gymnastics growing up, but that was kind of like any sporting thing I did, she sort of like shoved me into kicking and screaming. And then of course you hit like I was modeling, acting, you end up like exercising crazily because you feel like you have to be skinny or whatever. And after I got sick, I got adrenal fatigue. I was in bed. I couldn't exercise for about a year. Finding barre was the first time I really fell in love with exercise. Like I always liked yoga, but I fell in love with exercise and watched it transform my body in a way that nothing ever had. And just really enjoyed the process.
Yep. I'm there with you on that one.
And so I would love to know like a little bit of your backstory. How did your class that you've created is so special and wonderful. And there was one place in New York that's since closed that I absolutely fell in love with. And beyond that, I feel like I liked your class maybe second best. So how did you get to where you are today? Give us a little bit of backstory about why you love barre and why you created this.
Of course. Thank you. So I used to be a dancer and I grew up dancing since the age of 3. So, when I speak to any of my clients and anybody who is a former dancer, it's just always in your blood. And you hear music and you hear rhythm and it takes you into a place of comfort, into a place of consistency. And I have always found the studio and movement as a place of joy for me. So I grew up dancing my whole life and I became a competitor. So my parents kind of packed us up in their car and took us to lots of different national competitions around the US. And I was so grateful for those experiences because not only did I compete, but I was able to do workshops with some incredible talent and coaches and teachers along the way. So I moved into high school, and at high school, we had a very competitive cheerleading team for our high school, which was a 5A team. And as a dancer,
where was this? Where in the US was this?
This was in New Mexico. So I actually grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I decided to try out for the cheerleading team, even though I had never cheered before in my life. But as a dancer, I thought, why not? I think I can do their floor work and I think I can, give it a good shot. And I tried out for the audition and I was a freshman and the coach said, okay, wow, you've got rhythm, you have flexibility. We want to put you up as a flyer in our pyramid. And I was thinking, oh gosh, okay, yeah, I'll go for it. And like the more you get to know me, I really don't say no to anything. I just leap full into it. So I thought, okay, fine. And sure enough, I was loaded onto the pyramid and I was coached to the top and I was coached to hold my my leg, and then I was coached to move into an arabesque and into, a turn down. And it was amazing. It was so exhilarating. And he said to me, okay, we have 2 spots for varsity, which if you know America, you either have C team, JV, and varsity. And as a freshman, it's really unusual to ever make a varsity squad. And he said, we have 2 spots left for varsity. If you can do a back handspring right here, right now, you can make the team, because everybody on our varsity team has to be able to do a back handspring because it was a full tumbling squad. And mind you, I had never tumbled before in my life. I had never done gymnastics. I had only been a dancer through and through. And I stood there and I thought, right, this is it. I'm going to do it. and, and he coached me and he showed me exactly how to do it. And I thought, right, this is my moment and I'm going to do it. And I threw my back handspring and I landed it and I made the team and we were, and yeah, it's just, it's mad. And
that is mad.
It's mad. And to this day, my mom says every time she'd watch us cheer, because we became quite a good squad that actually traveled nationals around the US to compete as well. So if you've seen Cheer Moms and Cheer Squad, it's full on, and there is so much talent.
It's so intense.
It's so intense, so much talent. It is one of the most incredible sports because it is fully athletic, and you are building a community and a team, because without your team and without your full support of those underneath you, nothing works, right? So it's, again, like an incredible learning experience. So I did it actually for 2 years and I found it really exhilarating, but also really hard on my body.
Yeah.
It was hard on my joints. It was hard with tumbling. It was hard on my neck and my shoulders just because of all of the throws and the tosses in the air. And my mom to this day says, anytime I would watch you perform, I had to hold my breath because it was tough. And then I left cheerleading and I went to Arizona State University. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, I just missed dance so much. So I actually joined their salsa team. So they had an Arizona State salsa team. And it was wonderful because everybody was, former dancers and we all understood rhythm and beat, but we were learning from some incredible coaches and instructors who came to the university to teach. And we got on the circuit for competitions and we went to Las Vegas for a national competition. And that was, again, just another experience where we were all wearing our numbers and we were all out on the floor and you're just moving in this rhythm of people. And I think if I look back on my life, every moment that I have thrown myself into, every moment of unsurety, just pressure or joy, I've always found that movement has been one common factor of that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So through university, I continued dancing with them. And then I met my husband. I'm kind of like packing my life into a quick.
I love it. No, this is great.
Then I met my husband my senior year of university, and he's actually from London. So I moved over to London after I graduated with my degree in, funnily enough, interior design and architecture.
Amazing.
And I moved to London and I kind of landed and I realized I was so lost. I was so lost with my
community. You were like 22, 23?
Exactly.
That's so young. We think we're so old.
Yeah, I was so young. And that was a real eye-opener for me of, I was lost within my community. I was lost within things that I knew that were familiar. I'd even go to the grocery store and the brands were new. I didn't know what to buy. I walked in just being fatigued from all the choices and I just left. I'd meet my friends for, coffee, and they'd be like, I'm going to see my sister and I'm off to see my mom. And I would be like, and I don't have family here. So, that was a really big opening moment for me. And I thought, what would feel good for me right now? And it was going to a dance class. So I walked into Pineapple Dance Studios in London, which is one of the most famous dance studios here. If you're a dancer, you know it. And I felt so held. I felt really held in
Mm.
that space, and it was
Hmm.
just so transformative. So I continued going to classes,
And what kind of dance were
and
you taking at the time then?
I was actually taking contemporary.
Hmm.
Um, and I just, I feel like you're in the space in the room with so many different bodies, so many different walks of life, and people of incredibly varying abilities, but there's obviously the commonality of movement and community, and that was a big part of my transition into movement here in London. And then I worked corporate. So I started working for Selfridges,
Hmm.
and I worked for their MAC Cosmetics, and I managed their beauty counter, which at the time was the number one counter in the world. So our turnover was extortionate. We were doing such an incredible job. And this was before the time of Instagram and influencers. We were the sole sponsors of the London Fashion Week. MAC Cosmetics was just such an incredible space to be in, of creativity as well. And I became pregnant with my first son whilst I was working there. And during my pregnancy, I was actually taking reformer Pilates classes
Hmm.
throughout. And I got to about 7 months, and the studio said to me, so, Catie, you can't come to our classes anymore because you're too pregnant. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because this is the only thing that's keeping me moving. And they actually said to me, well, if you want, we have a barre class on a Tuesday that you could drop into. And I walked into this space, and I actually knew one of the participants within the class. She was a very well known yoga instructor. And there was me, who was 7 months pregnant, and there were a couple older clients and a couple of younger clients. And I just thought, wow, again, the diversity of varying levels, but movement, and the commonality that we're all here to have a really good class. The instructor was a former dancer, so she knew how to hold the space and move us all. And I looked around and I thought, okay, why is this just an afterthought? Barre, just that random class on the timetable on a Tuesday. This is so impactful. This is safe. It's effective. It's giving us a killer workout, but also, we're looking after sustainable movement for our bodies. So I left the studio and I came home and I said to my husband, right, that's it. I know exactly what I'm going to do after I have this baby. I want to bring barre to London. And at the time, there were a couple studios here, but it just wasn't at the forefront of fitness and movement. People were very unsure of what barre was. And I went on a mission to bring it across from the US, which again, it was booming there. There they had Pure Barre, they had Exhale, every barre method you could think of. And being in New York, I mean, there's a barre studio on every corner.
Yeah, yeah.
But we just didn't have that here. So that's a little bit about my love of movement and how I found barre.
I didn't realize, I mean, I guess it makes sense. But so you had to go back to the US to study, or how did you end up getting trained in barre?
I did. So we franchised a brand from the US and we brought it
Mm.
across to the UK. And that was a big project. It became a very small um, thought that turned into a massive project filled with investment and shareholders, and landing a location on the Marylebone High Street that we launched and located, and we had open for 7 years.
Amazing.
Prior, it was incredible. And then COVID happened. So yeah, the story of a lot of people's entrepreneurial lives, it really threw a spanner in the mix.
So, did you ever think that you're going to end up an entrepreneur?
I think I did. And my dad always tells the story of we grew up on a golf course, and at night, my dad and I would walk the dogs, and I would find all of the golf balls that were left or hit off the path, and I would collect them, bring them home. I'd wash them, I'd package them up depending on, which title they were, pinnacle, or what number they were, and then I would bag them up and I would set up a lemonade stand at the golfers crosswalk and I would sell them back their balls. So
That's brilliant.
I think I always had it in me. Um, but it's definitely at times not been what I expected. It's been, in both ways, not what I expected in very difficult situations, but also not what I expected in the amount of freedom and joy that it's given me too.
Yeah. How do you think you've changed the most through the journey to becoming an entrepreneur?
Mm. I think I've realized a lot that it's not about me. It's about those around me, and it's about what I am contributing to the world and to my purpose. And I think I learned that a lot when I had my first son, that kickstart of, okay, I have another life that I have to keep alive that isn't just
Hmm.
myself. Um, but then it's also, moving into a business, listening to your community, to your people, of what it is that they want, and that I've really found that I'm here to just hold a space for those around me, and I'm committed to that. And that's changed a lot, and it's taken a lot of growth and perspective and a lot of difficult conversations and people, mentoring me, and a lot of moments that I've fallen and gotten back up. But yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I know it isn't it interesting as you age, you're like, whoa, when it's
Yeah,
not about me and when I'm in service of others, I'm actually so much happier, right? And things end
so
up being so
much.
much more lucrative.
Yes, they do. I find, you know, Lianna, I have had some of the hardest times over the last 5 years, professionally, for
Hmm.
sure, because of
Hmm.
COVID and, all of the uncertainty and changing and going, taking a business fully digital that, again, I never understood the digital world, but yet,
Hmm.
really gave it my best crack, and things just didn't go to plan in the way that I had hoped. But I do feel that, it's brought me so much perspective and success into where I'm
Hmm.
at now, because, it brought me to my knees at times where I was just thinking, oh my gosh, but I kept getting back up in that same arena. And, at so many times I would sometimes think and reflect and go, is this actually what I'm meant to be doing? Or is the universe basically telling me, move on, Catie?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you gave
Is
it your best shot.
is there a specific story or incidents that you felt like you got rock bottomed or surprised or had to pivot in a way that might be meaningful to share, like you got a really big lesson out of it, or you also can say no.
No, of course. I mean, I have so many. I think as an entrepreneur, you stack those stories, and sometimes you almost like suppress them and push them back to the back of
Right,
your
right.
mind. But I'd say many things. Franchising a business that was American, moving over to the UK, that was tricky. It had many different elements to it
Hmm.
because the
Hmm.
US market is so successful. And
Hmm.
again, the US is so brilliant. And as an American moving to the UK at first, and I've been here now for almost 16 years, I compared everything to the US. And I was like,
Oh.
well, Americans do this, and well, it works like that in the US. But until I started to kind of really crack into British culture and understanding London as a metropolitan city that is so culturally diverse, understanding that actually this is not America and it will never be compared to America. So actually, the client and the community, that you are speaking to is very, very different. So as I was trying to find myself on that journey, I was also finding my community within that. So, that was definitely one hurdle that I would say was quite tricky. And then moving into fundraising, I mean, anybody who's ever done fundraising for their business, oh my gosh, you have to have so much stamina, so much
Mm-hmm.
self-belief. And you also have to have people around you that can say, keep going, because there
Mm,
are so many times where I would literally just be like, that's it, I'm done. You work so hard for a pitch and you get a yes. And then right at the 11th hour, you get a no. And you have to revisit the table again and say, okay, how do I re-strategize? What does this look like? So I think for me, I went into, interestingly enough, this business to grow studios, and
mm-hmm.
my dream was to have multiple studios across London within a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of just snowballed into having this beautiful space in Marylebone with this incredible community that was thriving. And I became an instructor and I started teaching more and more and more, to which I've now become this instructor holding space, which has kind of been different from what I originally thought I was getting involved in the business side of things
Mm-hmm.
with.
Mm-hmm. That's so I wonder, since the pandemic, right? Because we obviously all had to stay home, so everything shifted online. Are you finding people are craving more in-person experiences now?
Definitely. I think what the pandemic showed everybody is that the digital element is key. There is a
Yeah.
part of the digital space that now we can all find helpful.
Yeah.
It's how do we allow that to be used to benefit us and not to pull from us?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's social media, there's tech, and there's so much consumption that we have on a day-to-day basis. So using that for the good within movement, I found beneficial when my clients are traveling and
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to stop with their routines and they want to keep themselves moving, because movement is a big part of how they're able to be successful in their day-to-day lives. So that's wonderful and that's incredibly helpful. But I've also found that connection is so key
Yeah. Yeah.
after COVID. So being face to face and touching people and feeling people and connecting on a level that you just can't do digitally. But I'm so grateful for digital, because here we are filming a podcast and
Yeah.
sharing stories that will hopefully be inspiring to somebody. You know, there is that push and that pull of having
Mm-hmm.
them both together. So I'm grateful that COVID allowed us, one thing I'm grateful for is that it allowed us to kind of, come together into how to support each other, whether we're
Mm-hmm.
together or we're not.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. And just out of curiosity, I only lived in the UK for a couple of years. What did you find were the biggest differences when you were thinking like, okay, I'm bringing this company, this is the American clientele. What were the biggest pivots that you had to make when you started to understand like who was coming to Bar in London?
Well, I think as an American, I can say this, and maybe you'll agree, but I feel like Americans are all in. We love a new trend. We love a new
Yes.
business. We're
Yes.
so excited. We
Yes.
don't really need to know all of the details and the info, but we're just like, yes, we'll give it a go. Whereas in the UK, what I now fully appreciate is that they want to know why,
Mm.
how, what is this going to do for me? What does this look like? Tell me more. And that's also been a really great growth point for me as to how to share my business
Hmm.
and my method with the UK. So I'd say it wasn't necessarily a sticking point. Maybe it felt like that at first, but it
Hmm.
really helped me kind of develop my own skill set. Because I remember when I first started promoting my classes here, the first thing that I had to always help people understand was they'd say, "What is Barre?" And I and
Right,
as an
right.
American, I was like, "Oh, right. Okay, I thought, they would know that, because in America every studio has yoga, Pilates, HIIT, and bar."
Right.
And only now in the last 5 years, it's the same in London. Bar features in every ad, in every window, at every studio. And it's just this incredible movement that I do feel very fortunate to have been a part of. And I love, what it's contributing to everybody. And I find now that, the walks of life in my classes. I have men, I have women, prenatal, postnatal. Now we're having so much more science and research and data around the benefits of Pilates and breath work and barre and ballet, and pulling that all together. It just, yeah, I feel so passionate about it. I do.
I love it. I love it. You can tell. And you can tell, as you know, your class was quite diverse in terms of age and skill level, but I don't think it didn't seem like anyone was intimidated. It felt like a really big community vibe, which is so nice. And speaking of science, I'd love for you to share, like, what are you excited about? What are they finding out about barre? What are some of the benefits? I know on your website, I saw you had written a very interesting article about barre and perimenopause, and even like barre and posture and self-esteem. Like, there's so many
Yeah,
incredible benefits. Do you want to share some of your favorites?
of course. So I like to always think about barre from the feet up. So the beautiful thing about barre is that we do the majority of the class standing. So when I cue my classes, we cue from where your feet are positioned. And the more we're learning now about proprioception and the term longevity is, how are we going to make you live the years that you're living really well? And what
Mm-hmm.
does that look like? So in longevity tests, one of the things that they do is actually showing you how well you can balance on one leg.
Mm-hmm.
So, they get clients to balance on one leg and then to balance on the other, to balance on one leg with the opposite arm in the air, and then to try the other. So it's just really getting you to feel yourself in space and to understand your positioning. So I found with barre, cueing from the floor up, not only does that strengthen the lower body and the core and the posture, but it's really getting now your brain to connect to the whole movement. Because as soon as then we can connect to the breath, we can get your muscles contracting in the right positions. For example, if we're doing abdominal exercises, there's a specific way that we can exhale on flexion, inhale on extension of a movement, or you can always reverse that breath and make it a bit more challenging, but only if you have your key positions in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
So with Pilates and with the foundations and the root of Pilates, we talk about our head, our neck, our shoulders, our ribs, and our pelvis placement. And that's so key for how your body can move successfully in life. So there's a lot of research now about a healthy spine. What does
Mm-hmm.
it need to do to be able to feel healthy? And your spine every day, as we know, we need to be able to flex, so forward bend. We need
Mm-hmm.
to be able to rotate. We need to be able to side bend,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to be able to extend. So if we can get our spine moving in all those directions, then if we think about how we're breathing in all those directions, the movement becomes really profound for the body.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take that a little bit deeper into posture, and I wrote an article and a piece on our blog that talks a little bit more about posture being dynamic. And it isn't just about how we sit, and people think posture and they just immediately want to, sit up really tall. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
But actually, your posture is fluid and it's happening all day long. And your posture is happening with your facial expressions, with how you speak, with how you breathe, with how your body is digesting. And we know now that breath work and digestion play a huge role in each other and what,
Mm-hmm.
the success of digestion looks like and transit. So it's the same with movement. And I found, obviously, with barre, that's been one of the biggest breakthroughs, because the root of my class is it's Pilates. You're taking
Mm-hmm.
Pilates and you're getting the body standing. And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting the body moving dynamically so that I can start to build not only through the positions that we had lying down, but now through your footwork. So articulating the feet, which again, proprioception, if we think about longevity and aging, one of the hardest things that happens as we age is
Mm-hmm.
we start to fall and you
Yeah.
start to, not be able to find your balance within space. And that's so critical. It's so key. Whereas now we're seeing, these incredible shoe brands coming out there like Vivo Barefoot, who are really working on how do your feet need to feel into the earth so that you can go about your day, because everything goes from the floor all the way up.
Right, right.
So
Oh,
yeah.
No, that's fascinating. And it was so funny. I saw this functional medicine doctor recently, and it was cool because my first intake was like 3 hours, and he got like the whole health
Wow.
history and then looked at my feet. He was like,
Yeah.
made me take off my socks and shoes and looked at my feet. And he was like, okay, do you see this? And he was moving them around in these really small ways. And he goes, if you get this special orthotic that, corrects this tiny imbalance, he's like, I would assume maybe you feel something in your right knee and your right hip, and maybe you grind your teeth. And I was like, whoa, yeah. He's like, so this one orthotic is going to like alleviate the knee pain, the hip pain, and lessen clenching at night. And I was like, but it makes sense, right? Everything is so connected.
Yes.
And I really loved what you said about posture, and it really made me think of I studied acting in New York at a conservatory post university, and at the Atlantic Theater. And
that's so cool, by the way.
Oh, it was so much fun. It was like one of the best things. And honestly, I think that everyone would benefit so much from training like this. And it's funny because you probably have a lot of this as well as a dancer. You end up learning embodiment in a way that I think most people don't. But it made me think of, we had this monologue class with this one director, our like very last semester. In the beginning of the semester, she taped all of us just walking in and saying our name, and then thanking and leaving. And at the end, and it was so interesting because there was so much about posture and like forward and up, like Alexander technique stuff. And like, she talked a lot about walking big and slow. And in the beginning, we didn't know any of this. So we're all like walking and being like, hi, I'm Lianna Nielsen. Thanks for having me. Like, sorry. And at the end, we're all just like walking in slowly and like, really saying who we were. And it was bizarre to watch the two videos because you get a completely different understanding of who just by posture alone, how people walked and how you just stood up and said your name. It was like, well, I want to give her the job when nothing really happened different, where I really resonated with what you were saying about posture and, how it makes you feel and how the world perceives you. I think it's incredibly important.
Yes, I agree. That's such a cool story. Have you heard about power posing?
Yes.
Okay. And it really does, it helps. When you think about now, back at school, standing in front of a classroom like that is so intimidating. Getting up on stage and speaking is so intimidating. But yet here we are. And here's another thanks to social media and the digital world. We're all using our voices and we're pulling ourselves out of comfort zones all the time. So like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I felt so nervous, and here I am like blabbing away, but I was, it's very nerve wracking no matter what we choose to do and how we choose to stand up and to project our voices. But it's that internal monologue that we're giving ourselves before and coaching ourselves to get out there, to put our best foot forward. It is a part of the process. It's one of the biggest parts.
Absolutely. Okay. So I read this on your website and it really resonated with me, and I want to share it and just talk about it. The primary focus of exercise shouldn't be on aesthetics. By shifting your mindset away from purely aesthetic goals, you can tap into a deeper, more meaningful approach to fitness that fosters sustainable, lasting change. Instead of fixating on how you want to look, prioritize how you feel. When you focus on your well-being and physical sensations rather than your external appearance, positive results naturally emerge through dedicated practice and consistent effort. This is so incredibly important and something that I bring into all of my work with my clients when I was doing group programs. And it was this really interesting thing. I look at all of the hardships I've had as like beautiful lessons, right? If you can look back and learn, I think it's incredibly important. And getting sick in my 20s was really hard, right? Looking around at all my peers being like, wait, I was eating and drinking and doing the same things as you, and why am I in bed? And I used to exercise like crazy just to sort of punish my body because, I had an eating disorder. I was modeling. Like there's a lot of self-loathing that comes with that, especially like growing up in the United States, I feel like.
And I think
And
our generation was very diet culture based.
yes, yes, yes. So I was very, very hard on myself. And I was terrified because they basically were, I had adrenal fatigue. They're like, get in bed, like
Yeah.
literally no exercising besides like very gentle movement. And I was like lifting weights and running. I would go to the gym for 2 hours and just like sprint on the treadmill. And they were basically like, you can do none of this for like a year. So I was terrified that I was going to like become obese or something. And of course, none of that happened. I had like already like gone to health coaching school really. Well, I guess that was right before, but I was really looking at diet and playing around with that. So of course, none of that happened. But when I started to exercise again, I started to realize, because I would crave it when I couldn't. And I started to exercise again. And I was like, wait, we've had this all wrong. Like exercise is this incredible thing. That's a gift I give to myself to feel good, to feel sexy, to feel strong, to feel confident, to feel excited about the day, to have my brain work better, not this thing to get abs. And like that pivot really allowed me to fall in love with barre and yoga more and running in a different way. And I love that you bring that, because I think, we have come from such a toxic diet culture, and it's crazy. I actually just interviewed Federica last week about
did
her new book.
you?
I did. It came out this week. And I couldn't believe it. She was one of the stats was like hospitalizations for eating disorders have gone up like 85% in the past like 5 years or something, or like 2 years. I like blew my mind, because I think of that as like our generation, and it continues to get worse. So I feel like someone like you being in this space and preaching this message is so incredibly important. Can you talk a little bit more about like how you feel about all of this?
Sure. Look, I try to create a safe space for my clients to come into, because I always say, we're all showing up on our best days and on our worst days. Like that's it. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
And so I find that, giving your clients permission when they walk through the door to listen to their bodies is so important. And I have been to so many classes that name and shame you, that push you, that shout at you, that there's a totally different culture within that space. And if your cortisol levels are already very high and you're coming into a place of stress, what's going to happen? You're not going to have sustainable, lasting change and results that start to, again, make your brain feel joy. It's not going to make you feel like you want to come back. It's going to make it feel like it's a punishment, that you have to be there. And, that's in anything. I think in fitness, in nutrition, also in the company that you keep, just noticing, how do you feel? How does this make you feel when you walk in? And how does it make you feel when you walk out? And that's, my big thing is my aim is for my clients to walk out of my classes feeling taller, longer, leaner, and happier. That's it. Right? I just want their body to feel like it's moving. It has more space. And when I think for myself, movement now and understanding my body a little bit more and my cycles, and I started using, a menstrual cup within the last 5 years. And that alone, firstly, showed me how much wastage I've been using my whole life, and now being a bit more sustainable. But also, it's given me more insights into my body, into my menstrual cycle, into how I need to move and what is happening when I'm feeling week to week differently, right? Yeah. So now it doesn't look the same every week. And I now have given myself permission to move a bit slower or a bit more dynamically in certain weeks when I feel that I have the energy for that. And I think that, being able to now understand myself and having gone through 2 pregnancies, I'm now able to share that with my clients as to what, I want their goals to be for them and them alone, not for me. Right? I'm just hosting a space. I'm here leading this class, and I'm going to lead you through an effective class. It's going to make you feel well. It's going to give you options of modifications and progressions. And I think that's a really key point for any instructor if they're teaching. I like to cue from the modification, which is the foundation. That is the root of your move. That is how it works. And I can cue all the things I want to say, what your positioning is of your feet, your body, your arms, and how you're breathing with the movement. We start slow and then we progress into tempo and rhythm. Then we might advance into lifting your heels off the floor, and then we might fully advance into a cardio option of a jump. But if people have chosen that this week I'm not jumping, or do you know what, I never like to jump because of my joints, then they've already been set up in their initial foundational move that they don't feel left behind. And I think that again creates a positive space for clients to come into, to always feel that they're seen, that they're heard, and they can move their bodies based off of their own choices.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that because what you're doing is making it incredibly accessible for anyone, right? It's not intimidating. And I think that with New York and the culture there, I think bar does seem kind of like before
Sure.
I started going, it sort of had this, I just like everyone's gonna be tall and skinny and like ballerina-y and it's gonna and then that wasn't the case, right? It was a whole bunch of people and I got so much stronger. And I remember I have no butt. I have like a pretty flat butt. And I remember I hadn't seen my mom for a while. I started going to bar and she was like, what happened? You have a butt all of a sudden. And I was like, really?
And
I was like growing muscles in places I had never had them before.
But now because of that, you probably have a stronger lower back, a stronger core, all of these things that, of course, aesthetically that happened. And that's amazing because you look great. But actually, what were the benefits of that along the way? And that it takes time, right? And I think that's the biggest thing for all of us in this culture of needing instant satisfaction.
Right.
It's actually creating those small, sustainable habits that we can pack on top of each other day to day that come from a place of joy. Because if you find joy in the food you eat, the company you keep, how you move, the books you're reading, all these different things, it's just a package of constantly wanting to climb up that ladder. Because as we know, our brain and habits are formed. We can always change them, but it takes time and it takes a real commitment and a focus to what it is that you want to feel when you're doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of where I focus on. It's like, okay, how do we just get you doing things that feel good for your body? Because I think, again, we live in this instant gratification society where like we want the quick fix dopamine hit. But really, there are so many other things, whether it's sleeping more, moving your body, breathing, eating more vegetables, that make you feel good long term. And it's getting people to tell the difference between what's that quick high that leaves you feeling more stressed or wanting more, and the really like long term good feeling. And once they can decipher the difference and start to habit stack, like you were saying, with the better food and the better community and the better exercise, you just can't help, you start craving it. Is what I realized it. You really start craving. And you know what? I think a big part of it too is community. And you talk about this on your website as well, which I thought was great. I think there is something really nice. And when I said craving, it made me think about it because of course I did what everyone did. I did yoga, I did bar, I did whatever I could online. But after like a year or two, I craved like being in the studio around other people, because if I was alone in my room, I could just lay down whenever I wanted. And I would. I'm that girl where I was like the community piece I think is so important.
It's everything, because I realize now, and on my journey of growth, there's obviously the physical, and that's what starts people off originally is their physical health. How do I want to move? I want to come to a class. And then there's mental health, and we all know that that's a huge talking piece, even more so after COVID. And then there's the social piece. And that I think is always one that's forgotten of how important that is. And that brings me back to, my story of coming to London and feeling lost. That social health element, that pillar wasn't looked after. So it's creating now, this space and this community of like-minded individuals that you can come in with, you can collaborate with. And I think, when we talk about posture, it's acknowledging too how you feel when you walk into that space. Where do you tend to want to go? Do you tend to want to go to the back of the room? Do you tend to want to jump into a conversation? Do you tend to want to sit quiet and observe? Do you tend to want to contribute a lot? What does that look like? And then also acknowledging that wherever you've picked to be, there's a reason. And that's super supportive because you're a whole part of that essence and that story of the community. But then it's challenging yourself in ways that, do you have something you want to say? Do you have a foot that you want to step forward within that conversation? Can you walk in confidently and speak to somebody that maybe you've never spoken to before? You know, those little, again, habit stacking, it opens up doors that I have just seen for my clients. You know, one of my clients says to me, Catie, I do so much business in your changing rooms because they are always collaborating and they're talking and now they have endorphins flying and they're so creative and they're excited. And, you know, the bubble has been burst after the class. And I love that.
Mm-hmm,
That's what
mm-hmm.
this is about.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I love that. And I always talk about like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So it's really the way you walk in or hold yourself or, you know, dare to speak up. If you do that in bar, you're probably going to do that at work or on a date
Yeah.
or at a party. And I think every situation is an opportunity to practice, you know, being the best version of yourself. And that's like really what I hear you saying, which is incredible. So exercise is one of those funny things, right? That like once we're in a routine, we love it, we do it. But so many people, right, with life and work fall off the horse. What advice do you have for people who are like, I know moving makes me feel better. I haven't done it in a long time. Maybe I've gained weight or I'm inflamed. Like, how do I get back up and moving when, you know, I think it feels so intimidating when we stop for a while.
Of course. Little and often, you know, little and often. And I think everybody's story is different. And
Mm-hmm.
if that means, you know, that you feel more comfortable to get moving on your own, rolling your mat out in your home and popping a video on for 10 minutes, you know, there are so many great resources out there now digitally that we can tap into that are safe and effective. And I think if that can get you started into those tiny habit stacks, then incredible. But also, exploring your community and finding a space. I think convenience is really key in
Mm-hmm.
anything that we do. So if you can find something within your community and on your doorstep, again, that's a big piece that I would love everybody to embrace even further is supporting your local businesses, what
Mm-hmm.
that looks like, getting to know your local community, and that in itself will give you more purpose, more drive to want to come there. And I have clients now who say they don't want to miss their class because they know so and so is going to be there and they don't want to let so and so down. And I think, well, that's really beautiful, you know? So if you can find that space that you feel safe and seen, obviously, I would encourage to move, start slow, once a week, moving into, you know, twice a week and building those habits as you move forward. Um, and I'd also say, you know, nutrition is
Mm-hmm.
an important element of movement. And it's funny, as you start to commit to feeling well and moving your body, you then want to explore what that looks like further. And that's
Yeah.
so great now that we have incredible sources like Dr. Mati. And that's amazing that you have her on your podcast, that you can share that, because she has changed my life. She's changed my thought process on nutrition. She's
Mm-hmm.
changed
Mm-hmm.
how we cook for our children at home and the
Mm.
habits that we've created for them. And those habits for me were very different because I didn't have that innately in me. Movement, I could do it in my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Nutrition and cooking and understanding value of that, it's taken me work. So, you know, now being able to find the right resources and to have that. And it's great because, you know, she, as one example,
Yeah.
has podcasts and she
Yeah.
has free sources out on Instagram, you know, and of course you can delve a little bit deeper with a book. So I think, you know, whatever it is and whoever you choose wisely, do your research, make sure they understand what they're talking about
Mm-hmm.
because there is a lot of noise out there. So it's
Yes.
just kind of deciphering through that.
I actually really love that you shared that, right? Because, you know, you're fit, here you are, you're an entrepreneur in this space, you brought Barre into London. And I think people just assume you probably know. And I think it's really generous that you shared like, okay, this wasn't something that I was great at. And
Yeah.
it's become something, right? And I think we get really intimidated, whether it's movement or exercise or, I mean, same thing, or diet or whatever it is
Yeah.
that we're doing. Um, that we don't want to step outside of our comfort zone. But the more, and this goes back to doing small things every day that make you feel better and more confident, you end up being braver.
True. And I think it's also important, I like to say the consumers are becoming the experts, but they're
Yes.
becoming the experts of their own body. And this is
Yes.
amazing, right? This is
Yes.
what we're encouraging everybody to do. I can host a space for movement. Top nutritionists can host a space for research and science and data. But at the end of the day, you know your body best and what that
Yes.
looks and feels like. So I'm always very honest with my clients, when they come to me and they say, oh, this is how I'm feeling and this is what I'm doing. And I think, okay, I can take it so far with my training and what I know. But
Hmm.
then how I feel so, comfortable and grateful is I pass off to people like Dr. Jack and
Hmm.
Dr. Mati,
Right.
who have
Right.
different specialities where that's their life passion and their
Yeah.
purpose and their
Yeah.
drive of what they've created. So, I know my lane, and my lane is movement. Um, and I'm very grateful for that because I've been grateful to have Jack and Fetty in my classes, and it's great now for us to even be collaborating and to keep each other curious, because I think at the end of the day, Lianna, we're all just learning,
Yeah.
and that's it. We're just trying to soak up knowledge as we go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you need a team. I think everyone needs a team, right?
Yeah,
And it goes back to community. We all need each other, and everyone brings something special to the table. You can't do, like, health is not in a vacuum, and it's hard to do it all by yourself.
true.
Like, connection is such a big part of it. And
It's
what
so
would you
true.
offer for people who, I think the other side of like falling off of exercise is, the people who are like sore, or they realize they've, lost strength or put on weight. And I think in the beginning, getting back into movement is an opportunity to see how far they've fallen, and like
Of
almost
course.
be me, it takes getting over the hump. Maybe it's painful, or it's like, oh, my yoga pants are too tight. Or what do you offer for those, individuals who are
Sure.
almost avoiding the initial pain before it feels good again?
Sure. So what I love about Pilates is that, some of my best Pilates classes that I've ever been to as a participant myself, I haven't felt sore the next day. And
Mm,
there's a real rhythm behind that with Pilates, is that we are looking to dynamically stretch the body and recover in the process of movement. So
mm,
that's important for people to remember, is that recovery is everything. It's one of the biggest parts of your workout. So recovery looks like stretching, it looks like foam rolling, it looks like your breath work practices, it looks like soaking in the bath at night, having those pocket moments so that you can let the muscles recover, so
mhm,
that you can get back to your workouts quicker, more
mhm.
effectively, and avoid injury. That's really key, because I think sometimes in the mentalities you think, oh, I'm not really doing much. But actually, what you're doing is you're allowing the body and the muscles to recover. You're allowing the circulation to flow. You're allowing muscles that might be tight, that are pulling other muscles away from where they're intended to be, which might create pain. Let's say, for example, if your glutes are tight, you might be
Mhm,
feeling lower back pain.
mhm,
So what does that look like? Maybe it looks like you focusing a little bit more on recovery and stretches after your workout or before your workout. Again, habit stacking, to know that you know your body best. You're walking into a class. Maybe you show up about 5 minutes early and you pre-stretch before the class, so that you can say, okay, I really want to get a little bit more out of my workout today. So I'm going to show up and I'm going to commit to myself just a little bit further. I believe in foam rolling, and I have believed in this since I was a dancer.
mhm,
Um, it's a great way for you to warm the muscles up before and after class.
mhm.
I like to also sit on my foam roller at night when I'm watching a show, because it's just, again, little habits, being able to move your body and stretch. And it's almost like a little deep tissue massage that you can give yourself, and you can find your own little tension points and you can massage them out on your own with a tennis ball, even.
Mhm.
There's all these little tools. I know a lot of people have these pieces of equipment lying around their home,
Right.
but now it's just picking them up and using them, finding 5 minutes.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. Especially when you're just laying around watching TV, whatever it is. Like, it is such a, I've definitely done that in the past, where it's like, oh yeah, yeah, this should be a better, like, a habit that I do more often. So who is appropriate for barre and Pilates? Wow, that was hard to get out. If someone hasn't done it, yeah.
Everybody,
Yes.
everybody. My youngest client was 7 weeks old because
What?
they came with their mama after her 6 week sign off from her doctor into our postnatal work. So that was beautiful.
Hmm.
And, my oldest clients have been in their 80s.
Hmm.
And I feel so proud of that. And I think, everybody, what I like to say is just come and try it.
Mhm.
Because it's hard to explain because people always say, what is it? What is it? And I say, okay, I can give you all the framework of what the class entails, and it's barre and Pilates, and it's breath work and movement and stretching. But yet when you come into the space, you can actually see, okay, we're flowing. It's a flow
Mhm.
and it's a transitional piece
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
moving front, back of the body, side of the body, up, lying down, what that looks like. And I think it's just I'm always so impressed with the diverse types of clients within the space, men and women. And you asked before about, setting those habits and, sharing that with those around you. I have found that a lot of my clients, their children now want to come to class with them.
Oh, I love
And
that.
that's really special. So I have, students who are currently in their GCSEs or studying for university and they're sitting at their desk, but now coming has actually really helped them with their focus, their concentration, their posture, being able to, you know, work on their upper back extensors instead of, forward folded, because we are,
Yeah.
everything is forward
Yeah.
folded, whether you're a new mother and you're feeding or you're constantly picking up your children or,
Yeah.
you're sitting at your desk all day, everything is forward. So just having those pockets and those moments, to get up and stand, and also the work from home,
Yeah.
piece. That's a big piece, and it's a big part of our society now. And so we just have to maintain our species as what we're intended to do, which is we're
Right.
intended to move, we're intended to be together and to collaborate and to connect.
I love that. Are there any other surprising benefits that you see from a lot of your clients? I love that you said that about like the studying and the focus. Are there other things that you notice that people commonly say after taking your classes for a while?
Yeah. Um, my clients look really great. And I am so, so proud because they are so proud. And that for
Mm,
me has been the piece about back to aesthetic. The aesthetic comes, and it
right.
really comes. It is jaw dropping at times. You're just like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, that's incredible. And it's just because of habits and seeing them and being able to work with them in a consistent basis. It's, yeah, it's very impressive.
I love that. All right. So now everyone wants to become a client that's listening. Where do they
Yes.
find you? Where do they find
Uh,
you?
so I am I'm a hybrid model now, thank you to the last 5 years. I have you can find me free on YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel for Barre Series where anybody can tap into our classes and just get to know them. Which again, if you have, a computer at home and you want to roll out your mat, it's a great place to start. I also have from there a subscription service where we have hundreds and hundreds of workouts that have been shot professionally. And those are catered for all levels. I have programs to kickstart your routine if you've never done it before, to amplify it if you're an athlete. I have prenatal and postnatal programs. So there's a lot there to dig into. And then if you are in London, I teach in Mayfair, right across the street from Selfridges on Balderton Street. And I teach about 4 or 5 classes a week in the flesh. And that's where, it's a wonderful space to come in and tap into the community. And we host some events together where we bring the community all together. Last event we did with Dr. Amati, where I taught a class and she did a discussion on nutrition and health. And I like to do those from time to
Mhm.
time because it's so great to kind of all of us pique our curiosity a bit further, because if you're committing to something, a lot of us exercise, 3, 4 times a week. That's a big commitment, what that looks like. So I like to be able just to kind of find things inspiring for me and share
Mhm.
that out with our community. Um, and then that's it. I teach one-to-ones, I teach private sessions, and I do those either online or in my Mayfair studio, depending on the needs of my clients. But yes.
And what is your Instagram? What is your website? And we can link it in the show notes also, but tell them where they can find you.
Yeah. So our Instagram is Barre Series, and our website is www.barreseries.com. And it's all there. And what you read, Lianna, is our blog. It's under the edit on our website. And I am so, so proud of this space because I write weekly, and actually not a lot of people know about it, but it's there. It's always
It's
growing.
great.
And I thank you.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
lot of great stuff there. Go check it out, guys.
there's a lot. Yeah, thank you.
And I just saw you were doing a retreat in Portugal in the Douro Valley recently. It looked
Yes.
gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you. Last year, we hosted a retreat at Six Senses Ibiza, and this year we hosted at Six Senses Douro Valley. And that was just an incredible space. I mean, retreats and experiences like that, I would highly recommend it because it takes me back to what you were saying about when you walked to your class. Everybody comes in, you feel a sense of everyone's just a bit unsure what's going to happen because it's trust, right? The
Yeah.
guests are
Yeah.
trusting us to hold this space for them. And as the retreat moves forward, it just opens to the point where everybody at the end is like, we don't want to go. When are we doing the next one? What's happening? So half of the people that came this year came last year. So it's
Oh,
beautiful to
that's
see.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you.
And finally, we ask all of our guests, when times get tough and things are a bit challenging, how do you love through it? How do you pick yourself back up? What is sort of your number one go-to habit that you can lean on?
I would say just show up.
Hmm.
I say it all the time, and it is something that I have really held on to in my
Hmm.
life. And I
Hmm.
think through all of the different moments, and I'm very grateful, and I'm very thankful for what life has given me. And I know that, there are many twists and turns in everybody's lives, and we all have, different moments that are thrown our way. Um, I'd say showing up is a big part of honoring yourself and also those around you, because we all hold space, of course, like we were saying, for our community and for those, who are near us. But we also have to hold that space for ourselves, because
Hmm.
without the strength of our own pillar, everything else, starts to fall around us. So yeah, the first step is the hardest.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. I love that. And yeah, it's funny. I think really just showing up and allowing yourself to be wherever you are and just
Yeah,
accepting it is such a radical act of self-love. And if you can do
yeah,
that, you usually can go further than you think. So I love
that's
that.
true. That's
Thank
so
you
true.
so much. So, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for what you're putting out into the world. I think anyone who is encouraging women, especially to tap in and love their bodies more, is, I think really important in this day and age. So, thank you so much. And I loved your class. Everyone, check her
Ah,
out.
thank you for hosting this space so, so much.
You're welcome.